Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Dee again, and welcome to the Interstate with Dee. Today is Saturday, October 12th, 2024. Welcome back to our trip on the Interstate. What we do here is present news from the state level that will end up having national importance later, or news that made it into the national news cycle but was overshadowed. I'm Dee, and I've been with the channel since 2020. The concept behind this is very similar to the Roads Not Taken, but it focuses on important state-level news that often gets missed until it breaks on the national scene and surprises people. So think of this as just a little heads up for what you might see later. In Alaska's Katmai National Park and Preserve, bears observed on live cameras were voted on by people on the internet to determine the winner of the second Fat Bear contest. In Arizona, Ruben Gallego and Kari Lake had their only debate as they run for Senate in one of the most watched races in the country. Lake has a history of contesting election results. It might prove unnecessary in this race. All recent polling used by 538 shows Gallego firmly in the lead, with one recent outlier poll showing him up by 13 points. Most recent polling puts him at least 6 points up. In Colorado, a former gold mine that is now a tourist site was the scene of an elevator malfunction. The exact circumstances are unknown at time of recording, but there was reportedly one fatality and a dozen people were trapped for 6 hours before being rescued. In Florida, Hurricane Milton came ashore as a Category 3. The storm and accompanying floods and hurricanes have reportedly led to 14 deaths. That number is expected to climb. Up in Michigan, Trump was campaigning and apparently forgot where he was. He said, quote, "Well, we're a developing nation too. Just take a look at Detroit. Detroit's a developing area more than most places in China." He also said, "Our whole country will end up being like Detroit if she's your president. You're going to have a mess on your hands." This would be bad to say anywhere in Michigan, but Trump chose to trash Detroit while in, Detroit. Spanish speakers in Nevada saw bilingual billboards go up in support of Harris, as the Democratic Party continues to reach out to a demographic that has historically been a solid voting bloc for them. In North Carolina, the toll from Hurricane Helene has reached 90, with an unknown number still missing. There are also reports starting to surface of people who are in need of assistance who won't take FEMA assistance because of baseless internet stories. If you haven't seen it, please watch Bell's fact check of the claims. In Pennsylvania, former President Obama stumped for Vice President Harris. The importance of Pennsylvania in this election can't be overstated, so the Democratic Party is pulling out all the stops. In Rhode Island and other states, the northern lights were visible. It's rare for them to be seen that far south, but a severe geomagnetic storm made them visible far outside the normal areas. In Texas, a chemical release reportedly occurred at a facility in Deer Park, near Houston. According to officials, there are at least 2 dead and 35 injured. The chemical in question was hydrogen sulfide, which is extremely flammable, colorless, and smells like rotten eggs. Out in Utah, there was a rare and welcome event. The 2 candidates vying for Mitt Romney's Senate seat both presented ideas on how to deal with climate change. Granted, the Republican candidates' ideas were based in a market approach that has been met with heavy skepticism. But in the very red state of Utah, they're acknowledging there is a climate crisis, which is nice. A woman in Washington state called 911 after being surrounded by an estimated 100 raccoons who were said to be acting aggressively. The woman had reportedly been feeding local raccoons for decades without incident. Elsewhere in Washington, Boeing has withdrawn the contract offer, and both Boeing and union get ready for what could be a long strike. Okay, so moving on to the question and answer portion of the show. This first question we got multiple times in multiple ways, but they all carry the same core message. Question number 1. In Montana, what exactly do CI, 126 and CI-127 do? Okay, so first, for anybody with questions about various state ballot questions, there's a website called Ballotpedia that has your answer most times. It's a really good resource for a ton of topics. Okay, so CI-126 gets rid of the current primary system. There will no longer be Democratic or Republican primaries. There would be a single primary for a whole bunch of state offices and Congress. Voters would get to vote for one candidate, regardless of party. The top 4 candidates with the most votes would advance to the general election. CI-127 requires a candidate for a lot of state offices and Congress to obtain a majority of the vote. So, let's say you have a 3-way race for governor. The Republican candidate gets 48%. The Democratic candidate gets 47%, and the third party gets the remainder. Under the current system, the Republican candidate wins. This would make it so there would need to be a runoff election between the top 2 candidates. Question number 2. Which one of y'all have visited the most states? That would definitely be Bill or Bo. If you count just driving through, it's definitely Bo, because he'd rather drive than fly, and he's driven coast to coast multiple times. If by visit, you mean they have to hang out in the state for a certain period of time? I'm not sure. Question number 3. Hello, D. I've noticed it takes time for people to show their real personality when they start putting stuff on the channel. So are you as sarcastic as Belle and Dana? Even more so. But I'm not sure I'll show that much. At least, not on this show. I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens as I work on my delivery. And here's your weird state fact. In Washington State, there's a county with a history of having laws against hunting Bigfoot. Okay, that looks like it. We'll see you next week for another trip. Y'all have a good day.